What's up, my freshmen and sophomores? I hope you enjoyed our last little video on the 5 English skills. I hope that maybe helped you understand why we need applied English class as part of your daily schedule, as we just continue to build skills that will make you more successful in your other classes, but also in your future life, no matter what your goals may be. Our first little baby step, building up those English skills this year, is parts of speech, as we learn verbs today. As you note right here in our Schoology course, these are documents you already have on paper. We've got Verbs Notes, which we'll do first here. There's also Verbs and Nouns worksheet. It's not due until the end of class tomorrow. We'll take a look at both of these in this video. So Verbs Notes, we'll see a couple things. Use this PowerPoint presentation to complete the attached note packet below. Today we are only focusing on the verbs section. There's my PowerPoint. It's going a little slow right here. If you are working through this virtually, so if you're not in my 5th hour class using a substitute teacher today, maybe you missed class earlier, I'm glad that you're here doing this virtually. Notice that you can access your parts of speech packet virtually as well. Clicking view will allow you to see it just in an online manner. Actually, clicking on the document will download it to your computer. So those of you who are watching in class, you have a paper copy in front of you. I do want you to follow along with the blanks as I teach about verbs here. I'll just show the blanks real quickly here. I should note that this packet covers everything that we'll do with parts of speech this week and next week. We'll just take it in small little chunks, starting with verbs and helping verbs today. So notice that you've got some blanks to fill in as I present from PowerPoint. I want you to fill in those blanks as we go. I'll do some teaching along the way, but we'll also take a look at some of the sentences on our practice activity as well. I will open up the PowerPoint in PowerPoint. I'll catch you in just a moment here. And here we go. So as you notice, you've got a PowerPoint. It just says sentence writing notes, parts of speech. I actually have this divided up, I think, into 3 different PowerPoint presentations. We'll use a couple of different methods for getting some notes down on the 8 parts of speech, just starting with the first and possibly most important one to start with verbs today. Again, you've got some blanks to fill in along the way. Please follow along in your notes packet as I teach off of this video. So there are 2 main types of verbs. So the first type of word that we're going to look at here is called the verb, and there are 2 types. There are action verbs and there are linking verbs. Let's talk about action verbs first. They are the most common verbs in our language. Probably 98% of verbs in our language are action verbs. As it sounds like, these are words that show action. Words like dance, kick, hug, say, dream, state, exclaim, ask. Verbs like that denote an action are action verbs. Action verbs tell us what the subject has or does. We'll talk about subjects tomorrow when we're learning about nouns. Action verbs usually express mental or physical action. It can be something very physical and obvious like dance or kick. It could be a mental action like to say something, or to think is an action as well, even though it may not have actual movement. For example, here's a sentence that has 2 action verbs. They're underlined for you. The dog growled at the toddler. What did the dog do? The dog growled. Semicolon, the toddler cried. What did the toddler do? The toddler cried. Notice that there's 2 actions in that sentence. There's what the dog is doing. The dog is the subject and it is growling. The action of the toddler, he or she, male or female, is that he or she is crying. I think in your notes you have I blank the mailman. Take a moment if you haven't yet and just add an action verb right there. Maybe take a moment, pause the video, and share that out as a class. What are some of those appropriate verbs that you put into the blanks? So those are action verbs. Again, like 98% of the verbs in our language are actions. There is a very small set of verbs that are called linking verbs. I'm just double checking your notes right there. So that would be under number 2. Sorry, bug fell on me. Number 2 right there. The other main type of verbs are linking verbs. As you note here in your notes, the most important ones are just the forms of the verb to be. So they are am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. So 8 main linking verbs I want you to memorize. And what's tricky about these things is that these do not seem like verbs, even though they are. So trust me, even though these verbs do not seem like actions themselves, we still treat them as verbs and should identify them as verbs. Start memorizing them now. If you can memorize the forms of to be, you've got the most important linking verbs down pat. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. By the way, these videos are pausable, so if I'm going too fast at all for you, whether you're studying at home or you're in my 5th hour class with a sub today, feel free to pause along the way for the sake of taking notes and discussing. So a couple examples right there. Mr. Hantek and Mrs. Tan are teachers. Am, is, are. We've got a linking verb right here. We call them linking verbs because they link information on both sides of the sentence. So here we have two subjects, Mr. Hantak and Mrs. Tan. We'll learn about conjunctions in a few days here, and as a conjunction, bringing them together. The linking verb is linking both of us to this noun over here, teachers. It's what we are. And that's what we see here with our verb. It's linking who we are by name to who we are by profession. Notice here we've also got a blank. You blank so gorgeous, said the man bravely. Another good spot maybe to pause and discuss what should go in that blank. There aren't a whole lot of verbs that work here, so discuss which of the linking verbs actually fit here. And I hope you had a decent amount of time to discuss that right here. There's really two possibilities, and one of them is very kind, and one of them is not very kind. You are so gorgeous is the kind way to go about that, said the man bravely. Take some guts to approach a woman and just tell her straight up that she's gorgeous. The other not so nice option is you were so gorgeous, past tense. That would imply that she's not gorgeous anymore, so maybe not a very kind sentence right there. If you were tempted to say you be so gorgeous, it's a little bit too slangy for formal English. We'll talk a little bit more about when to use be, being, and been at a later date. Helping verbs. Now, helping verbs themselves are not verbs, and this is a concept you'll learn a little bit more in English 1. So this is kind of just a bonus for you guys here. Helping verbs are words that get paired with action verbs, and they just change the meaning of the sentence a little bit. I did include a list of common ones in your notes, so you have access to them there. I believe there's 23 common helping verbs. Together, verbs and helping verbs form what are called verb phrases. A phrase is just a grouping of words that work together. As you can see, you've got the common helping verbs right there. What we'll notice in this next slide is that pairing different helping verbs with action verbs changes the meaning of this sentence. So, for example, a lot of teachers are wearing pink today. Wearing is the verb. It's what the teachers are doing. It's an action. Are is actually a helping verb, not a linking verb, that's working with wearing right here to change the meaning of the sentence. A lot of teachers wear pink today, and a lot of teachers are wearing pink today, have slightly different meanings to them. I want you to play around with helping verbs to see what works between Jimmy and asked in this sentence. Jimmy asked Camille to homecoming. Take a moment, maybe discuss it out with your row, and see what you can come up with here. I'm just going to go back a slide and see what works. So it's Jimmy asked Camille to homecoming. Oh, if we said something like Jimmy could ask Camille to homecoming. That's a very different sentence. Jimmy asked, past tense, means that he already did it. Jimmy could ask Camille means that it's a possibility. It hasn't happened yet. It also implies that there are other possibilities too. Jimmy has asked Camille to homecoming means that it's something that he's tried before. Maybe he's had to try it 3 or 4 times. Jimmy may ask Camille to homecoming. Had to change the form of the verb a little bit there. Again, implies that it's a possibility. Jimmy should ask Camille to homecoming means that it's something that he should do. That's an opinion. Jimmy would ask Camille to homecoming implies that maybe he won't do it after all. He would ask her to homecoming, but he's too scared, or something like that. And then we get to nouns, which we'll save for tomorrow. As we end this video, I just want to take a look at your practice real quick. Let me go there in Schoology. Once again, you have access to this PowerPoint in Schoology as well. If you want to go back to this at any point, you also have a downloadable copy of your packet. But let's take a look at our practice activity. Again, those of you in my 5th hour class, you're getting this on paper today, so you can complete this on paper. I simply want to discuss this tomorrow. Let's look at verbs and nouns worksheet here. I'll just click view. So one side of this worksheet is identifying verbs. The other half is identifying nouns, which we'll do in class tomorrow. It just says in each of the sentences below, underline the verb and label it as an action verb with an A or a linking verb with an L. Each sentence is worth 1 point. We'll just do number 1 together just for fun. Tommy flipped the bottle into the trash can. In this sentence, we have to either find an action, a word that denotes an action, or a linking verb, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. I don't see any linking verbs, so we'll need to identify an action in this sentence. The only word that seems to work there is flipped. It's telling us what Tommy, the subject, did in that sentence. So you can underline flipped and label that with an A for action. I want you to try this maybe on your own. If you've got time in class, go ahead and try it with your row. I'm totally fine with that. This will be something I want you to complete for tomorrow so we can discuss verbs and move on to nouns together. Later.